"Mom, let's not go back home," my daughter-in-law begged. I heard my husband planning something for us. Those were the words that split the night open, before I even understood why my chest went cold. My name is Eldora Wynne. I am 68. I had just dropped my son, Graham, at Portland International Airport for his 2-day work trip to Seattle. He hugged me the way he always did, warm, steady, the son everyone admired. May stood beside him, quiet, but smiling. Her hands tucked into the sleeves of her cardigan. Nothing seemed unusual. Nothing hinted at danger. We watched Graham walk through the security line, lift his hand in a final wave, and disappear into the moving sea of travelers. I remember thinking how grown he looked, how proud his father would have been. Then May and I turned toward the parking garage, our footsteps echoing off the concrete. The moment we reached the car, May's hand shot out and clamped around my wrist, hard. Her grip burned with urgency I had never felt from her before. "Mom," she whispered, her voice raw, barely a breath. "Please, we can't go home tonight. I wanted to tell you earlier, but I was afraid he would see it on my face. For a second, I thought she was joking, or maybe ill." May was gentle, soft-spoken, the type who apologized when someone bumped into her. But now her eyes were wide, unfocused, trembling in a way that made my heartbeat thud against my ribs. "What are you talking about?" I asked, trying to steady my voice. She swallowed, her fingers tightening. "I heard Graham. He was on the phone early this morning. He was planning something for us, something bad, and he wasn't alone." Her words hit me so sharply I almost stepped back. Graham, my Graham, who never yelled, who helped neighbors shovel snow, who once drove an hour out of his way to return a lost wallet. The thought clashed with every memory I had of him, but May wasn't dramatic. She wasn't reckless, and she looked terrified. I unlocked the car slowly, my hands stiff on the keys. May slid into the passenger seat, still shaking, her breath shallow and uneven. I sat behind the wheel, my mind spinning, torn between the son I believed I knew and the fear gripping the woman he married. I started the engine, unsure of where to go, but certain of one thing: we would not walk through that front door again tonight. I drove without speaking, one hand tight on the wheel, the other trembling in my lap. May kept glancing at the mirrors as if something might materialize behind us. She didn't cry, didn't speak. She just held her breath like it was the last thing she could control. "Tell me exactly what you heard," I said finally. Her voice was barely there. "Graham said he needed things to be timed, that someone would meet him after he flew out. He said he didn't want us awake." She pressed her hands together. "Mom." He sounded like he already made up his mind. I felt something inside me bend, not break, bend, like an old branch straining in a storm. I turned off the main road and followed the narrow back streets that twisted through southeast Portland. Every turn felt like it pushed us farther away from the life I'd known. When we reached the neighborhood, I parked 2 blocks from my bungalow. I told myself we were only driving by once, just to see from a distance. Neither of us moved. Rain tapped softly on the windshield. The quiet felt wrong. May whispered, "They're going to the house. I know they are." Before I could answer, an unmarked van rolled slowly into the cul-de-sac. No company logo, no plates I could see. The headlights swept across the street, catching the wet pavement before the van eased to a stop directly in front of my home. 2 men stepped out. Not teenagers, not lost delivery drivers. Men who walked like they already knew the layout. One pointed at the side yard, then I saw it. The taller one reached into his coat, pulled out a key, and unlocked my gate. May grabbed my sleeve. Oh God, my stomach dropped hard. Only 2 people in the world had keys to that gate, me and Graham. I couldn't breathe as the men slipped inside the darkness around my house, moving with certainty, as if my son had drawn them a map. May and I stayed frozen in the car, watching the men disappear into the side yard. A faint click echoed from my back door. Then nothing, just silence thick enough to choke on. Minutes passed like hours until thin, shaky beams of light slid across my living room windows. They moved slowly, deliberately, like the men were searching for something they already expected to find. May whispered, "They're inside." I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles burned. I couldn't look away. The only thing I managed was to dial 911 with shaking fingers, blurt out my street name, and hang up before they could ask for more. The first glow appeared in the kitchen window, soft, yellow, almost gentle. For a moment, I thought they'd turned on a light. Then the glow thickened, pulsing, licking up the curtains. Flames. May covered her mouth. Oh God. Eldora. Smoke rose in a dark ribbon from the roofline. The flames spread fast. Too fast. My mind couldn't keep up years of memories stacked in those rooms. Graham's baby blanket, my husband's old letters, paperwork I'd protected for decades, all of it swallowed by a fire I didn't start and couldn't stop. My phone buzzed in my lap. A message from Graham. "Just landed. Hope you two are asleep at home. Love you." The words punched the air out of my lungs. I fumbled with the car door, stumbled into the street, and threw up onto the wet pavement. My whole body shook so violently I had to brace myself against the hood. May hurried out, voice breaking. "Eldora, please. Sit, I can't." I rasped. He knew exactly when this would happen. She didn't argue. She just cried small, silent sobs that made her shoulders curl inward like she was trying to disappear. The fire climbed through every window, bright and hungry. My house, my marriage. My life collapsed one room at a time. The men walked out calmly, their faces shadowed, their pace unhurried. They got into the van and drove off as if they'd finished a routine job. I sank back into the driver's seat, my hands shaking uncontrollably, staring at the inferno that used to be my home. Something inside me cracked. Graham hadn't just lied. He had planned this. I drove without seeing the road, my hands trembling on the wheel. May kept glancing out the back window like the van might reappear at any second. "Where are we going?" she whispered. "I don't know," I said. "I just need distance for several miles." Neither of us spoke. My chest hurt with every breath. I was sure that if we went to the police, Graham would hear about it within the hour. He had friends on the neighborhood council, clients who adored him, a reputation polished for decades. "They won't believe us," I said quietly. "They'll think we're confused, traumatized, anything but telling the truth." May swallowed hard. "Eldora, there's something I didn't tell you. Graham's been different for months." Her voice shook. "He hides bills. He doesn't sleep. He has panic attacks in the bathroom with the faucet running so I won't hear." I gripped the wheel tighter. "Why didn't you say something?" "Because every time I tried." He smiled like nothing was wrong, and that scared me more. A name pushed through the fog in my mind. Irene Cordell, an estate attorney, old friend of my late husband. Smart, discreet, impossible to intimidate. "We're going to Northwest Portland," I said. To Irene, May nodded, wiping her face. "Do you think Graham knows where she lives?" My foot pressed harder on the gas. "I hope not," I murmured. Irene Cordell listened without interrupting, her sharp eyes moving between May and me as we spoke. When I finished describing the fire, the van, the keys, everything, she folded her hands on her desk. "Eldora," she said slowly, "I hoped this day wouldn't come." My breath caught. "What day?" "The day your son's desperation collided with your husband's safeguards." She opened a locked drawer and pulled out a thin file. Your late husband left behind a very specific trust. You're the primary heir. Graham only inherits in two possible scenarios. Either you reach 75, or you and May both die before then." May let out a strangled gasp. I felt heat flash up my spine. "That can't be right." I whispered. "It is." Irene tapped the document. "Your husband worried Graham lacked discipline. He feared that easy wealth would ruin him. So he designed a system meant to protect you. Protect me from my own son," I whispered. Irene didn't answer, which was answer enough. She pulled out another stack of papers. "This is why I've been uneasy. Graham's business collapsed almost 6 months ago. He accumulated gambling debt, severe debt with unregulated lenders, people who don't forgive." May wrapped her arms around herself. "He told me everything was fine. He also contacted me." Irene said, 3 weeks ago, he asked how the trust unlocks. He wanted exact conditions." I stared at her. "And you told him I told him nothing, but the questions alone were alarming." Beside me, May broke. She covered her face with her hands. "I heard him on the phone last week. He thought I was asleep." Her voice cracked. He said, "I can't wait 8 more years. I need it now." 8 years, that's how long until I turn 75. Silence fell over the room. Heavy, suffocating, final. Irene leaned forward. "Eldora, your son isn't thinking clearly. When people owe the wrong men, they make terrible choices." May's shoulders shook. "We're alive because he thought we were home tonight." I felt something inside me fracture. Quietly, without drama, just a clean break. My own child now saw my life as an obstacle, and I had to decide what to do next. May touched her forehead like she was trying to pull a memory into place. "There's something else," she said. "Graham kept a notebook, a gray one. He hid it in his briefcase or in the home safe. I saw names in it once, and what looked like coded payments. Some entries looked like threats." Irene's mouth tightened. "That kind of notebook could implicate the lenders he owes. If they're the type I think they are, he'd guard it with his life." A cold pressure settled in my chest. "The home safe," I murmured. "Graham opened it constantly in the last months. I thought he was checking documents from work." "Is it fireproof?" Irene asked. "Yes. My husband insisted on that." May's eyes widened. "So the notebook, it might still be there." Irene nodded once. "If Graham hired men to burn your house, then that notebook mattered. He'll want to retrieve it himself when he comes back into town. That means you two have a small window. If he believes we were home, he probably thinks we're dead." I said, "Exactly," Irene replied. "That's the only advantage you have right now. Once he realizes you survived, everything changes." May wrapped her arms around herself, voice thin. "So we go back. We search the ruins before he does." "Not alone," Irene said. "I know a fire investigator retired. Reliable. Keeps his mouth shut. He can get us into the site before official cleanup begins. You'll follow his lead, grab what you can, and leave no sign you were there." My throat tightened. "And if Graham arrives first, then you turn around and walk away," Irene said firmly. "But you won't have much time. He'll return as soon as he finishes performing the role of the grieving husband." May looked at me, terrified. I looked back, feeling the weight of everything we'd lost. We were going back to the ashes of my home. The police tape fluttered in the cold morning wind as Irene led us through the charred remains of my street. A uniformed officer lifted the barrier for us without question. Her presence carried authority I could never match. Behind her walked a retired fire investigator with a locksmith's kit. A quiet man with soot-stained gloves and a case of tools. May stayed close to me, her hand trembling around mine. The house was gone. No walls, no roof, only a skeleton of beams and blackened memories. Irene didn't slow, she moved with purpose. guiding us toward what used to be my study. There, the locksmith said, crouching by a half-collapsed wall. Beneath twisted metal and debris sat the safe, scorched, warped, but intact. My heart hammered against my ribs. He set to work, the clicks of his tools sharp against the silence. After a long minute, the door gave with a dull metallic sigh. The smell of smoke rolled out. Inside lay the truth I had prayed not to find. A gray ledger, edges singed. A stack of forged insurance papers in Graham's handwriting. Loose pages scribbled with phrases, gas line timing, alibi at Portland International. After they're asleep, my knees buckled. May caught my arm. But I still felt myself sinking. That's his handwriting. I whispered, my son wrote these. The grief was a slow, crushing thing, heavier than the smoke in the air. I pressed a hand over my mouth, trying to hold myself together. Irene lifted the ledger carefully, flipping through pages filled with numbers, initials, and threats. This is enough to bury him legally, she said, but not enough to stop him from running or lashing out. May wiped her eyes. Then what do we do? Irene closed the ledger with a soft snap. We use what Graham believes is his escape route. He always suspected your husband left something else in the safe deposit box at the old bank downtown. He asked me about it months ago. I managed to look up. You want to lure him there? He'll come, Irene said. Greed will drag him in, and when he steps into that room, the police will already be waiting. May exhaled shakily. The plan was dangerous, reckless, final, but it might be the only way to end the threat once and for all. The plan moved faster than I expected. Irene's informant, a young man Graham once trusted, called him late at night. I listened from the corner of Irene's living room as the man spoke through a burner phone. I have the missing key, he said. The one Eldora your mother kept on her necklace. She gave it to me before she ran. I need cash fast. You want it or not? Silent tension filled the room. Then Graham's voice, tight and desperate. Yes, name the place. By the time the call ended, my stomach felt hollow. He bought the bait without hesitation. At sunrise. We stood behind tinted glass on the second floor of a downtown Portland bank, one my late husband trusted deeply. The manager, Mr. Calhoun, greeted us with solemn nods. He had already prepared the room. He'll bring falsified papers, Irene warned. Be ready. My palms were cold. A few minutes later, Graham walked through the lobby doors wearing the same confident smile I used to praise. He carried a folder documents I knew were forged, and the cheap metal key the informant sold him. Good morning, he told the receptionist, voice heavy with fake grief. I'm here to access my mother's safe deposit box. I have her power of attorney. His voice cracked on command. She passed away last night. I swallowed hard. May gripping my sleeve. Mr. Calhoun stepped out, playing along. Of course, Mr. Wynne, come with me. Graham didn't see us as he followed the manager down the hall. He didn't notice the two detectives trailing behind. When the vault door opened with a heavy groan, he walked inside first, eager, hungry, for whatever fortune he imagined waited for him. The door shut with a final metallic thud. He turned and saw us. May let out a small, broken sound. I felt her tremble, felt myself trembling too. Graham's face drained of color like someone had ripped the world out from under him. Mom, his voice cracked. You're alive. Detective Rourke placed a folder on the table between us. Recognize these, he asked. False power of attorney, forged death certificate, notes about gas timing, your so-called alibi at Portland International. Irene added the gray ledger. And this, your handwriting. Graham shook his head violently. No, that's not mine. May stepped forward. tears streaking her cheeks. I saw you right in it. Graham, his denial shattered. Rage came next, loud, erratic, but when the detectives closed in, that rage collapsed into a hollow, animal despair. I thought you were dead, he whispered. Sliding down the wall, I thought it was over. I stared at him, my son, and felt something ache deep inside me. He had tried to erase us, and now he realized we survived. The trial moved with a speed I had not expected. Irene kept me updated in calm. Steady phone calls, attempted murder, arson, insurance fraud, forgery. Each charge stacked onto the next until the picture of what Graham had become was undeniable. Do you want to be present for sentencing? Irene asked. I stared at the living room window, watching rain slip down the glass. No, I said. I carried him into this world. I don't need to watch him be taken out of it. So Irene stood in my place. When she called afterward, her voice was soft. A decades-long sentence. He will likely die in prison. He barely spoke. I thanked her, then sat alone for a long time. I didn't cry for the man he was now. I cried for the boy he had once been, the one who used to bring me wildflowers from the yard and tell me he'd protect me forever. That child was gone long before the fire. May moved into my temporary rental the same week. At first, she kept to the guest room, quiet and apologetic. But grief has strange ways of binding people together, over morning toast, over late-night whispers, over the shared ache of betrayal. She and I built something like safety. You don't have to stay, I told her one evening. I know, she said, but this feels like home. In the months that followed, Irene finalized the trust paperwork. I used a portion to start something small but fiercely important, a nonprofit in Portland that helps women escape financial abuse and offers adult literacy tutoring. I used to be a librarian once. Helping people rebuild their lives felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. One cool morning, May and I sat on the porch with mugs of tea. The air smelled clean, almost new. You saved us, she whispered. I shook my head, taking her hand. You saved me first. You told the truth when it mattered. She leaned against my shoulder, and I felt the quiet certainty of it settle around us. This was family, too. Before I continue the next chapter of our story, tell me, where are you listening from today?